The wind bit at the prairie like it carried the ghosts of 1,000 lost souls. The sun was sinking low, painting the sky in streaks of blood and gold, and the distant ridge of the rocky hills stood dark against the fading light. Sam McAllister, a cowboy with weathered skin and eyes that had seen too much, rode slowly across the open plain. His horse, a grizzled bay named Thunder, moved with a careful patience, sensing the unease in the air. Sam had traveled these lands for years, moving cattle and hauling freight, but tonight something felt different. The silence wasn't empty, it was watching. He spotted a thin wisp of smoke curling from the tree line, too small for a homestead, too deliberate to be random. Curiosity pricked at him, mingling with caution. As he drew closer, the smell hit him, something acrid like singed fur and iron. His pulse quickened. There, half hidden in the brush, was a crude pen made of fallen logs. Inside, a young wolf and her cub were chained. Their coats were matted, flecked with dried blood, and their eyes, wild and terrified, met his. It was a look that pierced deeper than any bullet could. Sam's heart tightened, and he felt a weight settle in his chest, heavy and inexorable. He dismounted slowly, letting Thunder graze on the sparse grass. The wolf growled low, a rumble that shook the ground, but there was no bite in it, only fear and hunger. Sam knelt a few feet away, hands visible, speaking in a low, calm voice. "Easy now. I won't hurt you." The cub whimpered and pressed close to its mother, trembling. He noticed the chains were rusted but cruel, biting into their fur and skin. Someone had left them here, no doubt as a trap or a test. Sam couldn't imagine who would do such a thing, until he remembered the outlaw rumors he'd heard along the trail, the stories of men who captured wolves for sport or worse, for fur and magic. He clenched his jaw. He couldn't leave them to die. The wind shifted suddenly, carrying the faint crunch of hoofbeats in the distance. Sam tensed. This part of the prairie had a way of hiding men who didn't want to be found. He worked quickly, pulling a pocket knife and kneeling beside the wolf, feeling her eyes track his every movement. The chains groaned under the strain as he slipped the lock open, whispering softly, "We're getting you out of here." The wolf lunged instinctively, but he flinched aside, letting her momentum carry her into the brush. The cub scrambled after her, whimpering, and for a moment Sam thought he'd lost them. Then the mother returned, circling him cautiously, gauging the man who had freed them. There was a fierce intelligence in her eyes, a raw, untamed awareness that made Sam swallow hard. He knew that look. It was the same look he had seen in men who survived the frontier without surrendering. As darkness fell, Sam led them to a small grove of pines a few hundred yards away. He gathered kindling, building a fire that crackled and glowed. The wolf and her cub kept their distance at first, watching him with wary eyes, but hunger drove the cub closer. Sam tore a strip of jerky from his pack and tossed it near the fire. The cub snatched it up, retreating instantly. The mother followed cautiously, sniffing the ground, then finally accepting a piece. He watched them eat, a strange warmth settling over his heart. He thought of the endless, lonely miles he had ridden, of the nights under the stars with nothing but the wind for company. This small act of mercy felt like a tether to something he had almost forgotten existed: hope. He didn't know how long he sat there by the fire, listening to the distant cry of coyotes and the labored breathing of the wild creatures he had saved. His thoughts wandered to the stories his pa had told him as a boy. Tales of cowboys who found friendship in the unlikeliest of places, who tamed the wild without breaking it, who healed wounds not just on skin but on the heart. Sam realized with a strange clarity that this wolf and her cub were more than just animals. They were a chance for redemption, a way to reconnect with the part of himself that hadn't been hardened by loss and the harsh demands of the West. And yet, even as he contemplated this fragile bond, he sensed danger lurking beyond the firelight. Someone had chained them here for a reason, someone who wouldn't take kindly to a cowboy interfering. He tightened the laces of his boots and gripped the reins of Thunder, eyes scanning the shadows beyond the trees. Tomorrow, he would have to decide. Would he leave these creatures to the mercy of the prairie, or risk everything to protect them from a world that had never been gentle to the weak? The wind howled through the pines, carrying the scent of snow and cold nights to come. Sam stared into the fire, the wolf at his side. The cub nestled cautiously near his boot. A story was beginning here, one that would stretch across plains and mountains, over deserts and rivers, through the hearts of men and animals alike. He didn't know how it would end, but for the first time in a long while, he felt a spark of something that felt dangerously like faith. The dawn broke over the prairie in a wash of silver and amber, sunlight glinting on frost-tipped grass like scattered diamonds. Sam woke to the quiet stirrings of the wolf and her cub. The little one padded close, nose twitching, and for the first time since he had found them, Sam felt a bond forming, a fragile thread that tethered him to a responsibility bigger than himself. He fed them before breaking camp, careful not to startle them, speaking softly. "We're moving, but you'll be safe, I promise." Thunder nickered softly as Sam swung into the saddle, and the wolf and cub followed him in a careful, cautious parade through the trees. The prairie stretched out endless and golden, dotted with the occasional sagebrush and granite outcropping. Sam scanned the horizon constantly, uneasy. He knew someone had left the chains, and that meant someone might be watching, waiting, perhaps with malice in their heart. Outlaws in these parts weren't just looking for cattle or gold. They were cruel in ways that took a man's soul if he let them. As they rode, Sam's mind wandered back to the town of Silver Creek, a scattering of wooden storefronts and saloons nestled against the base of a rocky ridge. It was a place where rumors traveled faster than horses, and a man with a story like his, finding chained wolves in the wild, would draw attention. Not all of it welcome, but he needed supplies, and more importantly, he needed information. He had heard whispers of a hunter who dealt in wolves, someone cruel enough to chain them, and he needed to know who had left this mother and cub to suffer. The wolf kept pace at a distance, silent and graceful, her ears flicking at every sound. The cub ran ahead, fearless, chasing birds and scattering prairie dogs, its youthful energy a stark contrast to the heavy weight pressing on Sam's shoulders. He couldn't help but smile. The sight reminded him of a time long ago, of innocence he had lost on the trails, and of nights spent dreaming of a family he might never have. When he reached Silver Creek, the town was stirring, a haze of smoke from cooking fires drifting along the wooden sidewalks. Sam tethered Thunder behind the general store and slipped inside, trying to appear as unremarkable as a man could in boots worn thin by miles of dirt and grit. He asked after supplies, then, carefully, quietly, he inquired about wolves, faces twisted with suspicion, some with fear. It seemed the wolf trade was whispered about, not openly discussed, as if the very mention of it carried a curse. Then he met her, Evelyn Carter, a woman who ran the boarding house on the east side of town, had sharp eyes and a softer voice than the world deserved. Sam found her arranging linens in the morning sunlight that filtered through the window. Her presence was like a sudden warmth in a cold room, steady yet charged with an energy that made him forget for a moment the danger lurking in the prairie. She listened as he spoke, cautiously at first, then with growing concern as he described the chained wolves, their suffering, and the man who might be behind it. "You can't just ride out there alone," she said finally, her hands gripping the edge of the counter. "This is the prairie, Sam. People out there. They don't care about mercy. They only care about control." He nodded, his jaw tight. "I don't have much choice. Those wolves, they're innocent. They didn't ask to be caught, chained, or abandoned. Someone has to help them. Someone has to care." Her eyes softened, but there was steel there too, the kind that comes from surviving losses that leave scars unseen. "Then you'll need help. And I might know someone. He's quiet, knows the land, and he doesn't take kindly to men who hurt animals for sport." Her words stirred something in Sam. For months he had wandered the plains alone, wary of attachments, yet here was someone offering a chance to fight alongside him, to face the unknown together. And there was more, a fluttering, unspoken tension in the way she glanced at him, a hint of a connection neither had acknowledged but both sensed. They rode out that afternoon, Sam, Evelyn, and the wolf and cub, heading toward the hills where the man rumored to be responsible had last been seen. The wind tore through their hair and clothes, carrying with it the scent of pine, wildflowers, and the distant threat of danger. Sam kept his hand close to the rifle slung across his back, while Evelyn rode with a quiet determination that matched his own. The wolf and cub moved between them like shadows, silent guardians of a bond that was growing stronger with every mile. As the sun dipped low, they set up camp in a sheltered canyon. The wolf curled close to Sam. The cub nestled against Evelyn's lap. Around the fire, they shared little more than quiet conversation and the rhythm of survival. The crackle of flames, the whisper of wind through the rocks, the occasional distant howl of coyotes. Yet even in the silence, there was a connection forming. A fragile trust, a sense of belonging that neither Sam nor Evelyn had felt in years. But the prairie was not forgiving. As night deepened, Sam sensed movement beyond the canyon's mouth, shadows slipping along the rocks. He tensed, signaling Evelyn to stay low. The wolf growled softly, a warning in the darkness. Someone was watching. Someone had followed them. and the game of survival, of justice, was just beginning. The wind carried a faint, chilling laugh from the darkness. Sam tightened his grip on the rifle, eyes narrowing. The hunt, he realized, had just begun. Not for the wolves alone, but for all of them. The night was thick and silent, save for the occasional crackle of the fire and the soft rustling of the prairie grass beyond the canyon walls. Sam's eyes never strayed far from the shadows that clung to the mouth of the canyon, and Evelyn sat close, her hands steady on the cub that had grown almost fearless in her presence. The wolf, alert and watchful, lay at Sam's side, ears twitching, eyes glinting in the firelight. There was a strange harmony in their small camp, life and danger coexisting in fragile balance. Suddenly, a sound shattered the stillness, a twig snapping, deliberate and cautious. Sam's hand went to his rifle, muscles coiled, heart hammering. The wolf leapt up, hair bristling, a low growl rumbling from deep within her chest. The cub skittered under Evelyn's legs, squeaking in alarm. Shadows moved along the edge of the canyon, silent but purposeful. Someone was there. "Stay low," Sam whispered, his voice calm but firm. He could see the silhouette of a man, tall and wiry, knife glinting faintly in the firelight. The outlaw eyes, sharp, cruel, assessing, locked on them. "You shouldn't have come here," the man said, voice carrying across the fire. "Those wolves belong to me." Sam didn't hesitate. He aimed, but there was a pause, a flicker in his mind. The wolf at his side, the cub trembling, Evelyn's sharp gaze. He couldn't afford to risk the lives in front of him. "They don't belong to anyone," he said, voice steady, "and you won't touch them." The man laughed, a cold, bitter sound. Brave words for a cowboy with a woman on his side. "Hand over the beasts and I might let you walk away." Evelyn's hands rested on the cub, her jaw tight. "You're not walking away from this," she said, her voice low but sharp. "We don't take kindly to bullies in Silver Creek." The standoff stretched, heavy and tense, as if the canyon itself held its breath. Sam's mind raced. He had no backup, no reinforcements, just his wits, a rifle and the wild animals who trusted him. And yet in that moment he felt a surge of certainty. He wouldn't let cruelty win. Not today, not ever. The wolf leapt forward suddenly, a blur of fur and teeth surprising the outlaw. The cub barked and charged, fearless despite its youth. Sam took his chance, moving like a shadow behind the wolf, pressing the barrel of his rifle forward, his aim true. The man stumbled back, startled by the ferocity of the animals, and Sam's heart pounded with adrenaline. The outlaw snarled, realizing he had underestimated both man and beast. "Get out of here," Sam growled, voice low, dangerous. "Or you'll regret it." The man hesitated, calculating. Sam saw the fear in his eyes, fear he hadn't expected from a cowboy with a wolf at his side. With a curse and a clatter of boots, he turned and vanished into the night, swallowed by the shadows he had once commanded. The wolf growled one last warning, then sank to her haunches, watching the darkness, ensuring the threat had truly passed. Evelyn exhaled, relief washing over her. "You saved us," she said quietly, glancing at Sam. The firelight flickered across his face, highlighting the weariness and determination etched into his features. Sam shook his head, his hand still resting lightly on the wolf. "We saved each other," he corrected. He looked down at the cub, which had nestled against his boot, and smiled. "And I reckon we're just getting started." The next morning, the prairie was washed in pale sunlight. Sam and Evelyn prepared to move again, deeper into the hills where the outlaw had come from. They knew they were chasing more than a man. They were chasing justice, balance, and the fragile hope that good could survive in a land that often seemed ruled by cruelty. As they rode, Sam found himself stealing glances at Evelyn. She had a strength he hadn't expected, tempered with a kindness that softened the harshness of the world. He thought of the life he had lived, lonely nights under stars, endless miles, and a heart hardened by loss, and realized slowly that he was beginning to feel something he had long buried, the pull of trust and maybe even love. By noon, they reached a ridge overlooking a valley carved by the wind and rivers over centuries. Below, the remnants of an old cabin peeked through tall grass and wildflowers. Sam's heart tightened. The outlaw had to have been here, and the signs were clear. Smoke stains, broken fences, and traps left half hidden. He dismounted, motioning for Evelyn to stay back. The wolf and cub followed him like shadows, silent and vigilant. Inside the cabin, the air was thick with neglect and secrecy. Sam's eyes swept the room, noting the rough carvings on the walls, the scraps of fur and leather, and a small cage, empty but bearing the rusted chains like scars of the past. He swallowed hard, a mix of anger and sorrow tightening his chest. Someone had hurt these animals before, and there was no telling what cruelty had been inflicted beyond what he had seen. Evelyn stepped in beside him, her hand brushing his arm. "We'll put it right," she said softly, her voice steady. "We'll make sure no one else suffers like this together." Sam nodded, looking down at the wolf, who met his gaze with unspoken understanding. The bond had grown beyond survival. It was now a promise, a pact of protection and loyalty. He knew the road ahead would be dangerous, fraught with outlaws, harsh terrain, and moral choices that would test every ounce of courage he had. But in that moment, with the wolf and cub by his side and Evelyn standing close, he felt a strange peace. Maybe, just maybe, they could carve a corner of the West where mercy mattered, where love and loyalty weren't forgotten, and where even a cowboy could find redemption. The wind whispered through the valley, carrying the scent of pine, snow, and a promise of challenges yet to come. Sam tightened his grip on his rifle and mounted Thunder, ready to face whatever awaited them beyond the ridge. The valley lay quiet beneath the late afternoon sun, the kind of stillness that made every creak of timber or rustle of grass seem amplified. Sam rode slowly, eyes scanning the undulating hills, wary of ambushes. Evelyn followed closely, the cub bouncing at her side, and the wolf moved like a shadow, silent, lethal in her grace. Sam's fingers drummed on the rifle, the weight of responsibility pressing down heavier than ever. The old cabin they had found yesterday had left more questions than answers. The cages, the chains, the faint scratches in the floorboards, they were clues to cruelty that ran deeper than any one outlaw. Sam knew they had to dig carefully because in this land, vengeance was a currency as real as gold, and danger often wore a friendly face. As they descended into the valley floor, the wind shifted, carrying with it the acrid scent of smoke. A thin trail led them to a cluster of trees, where a small encampment lay hidden. Sam signaled Evelyn to dismount, and together they approached on foot. The wolf pressed close, ears flat, body tense. The cub whimpered but stayed near Evelyn's heels. From the trees, a figure emerged, young, wiry, and wary. Sam's pulse tightened. It wasn't the outlaw they had expected, but someone connected. The man held a rifle loosely, his hands shaking slightly, eyes darting between the wolf and Sam. You freed them," he said, voice small and cautious. I was told to chain them. That's all?" Sam's jaw tightened. "Who told you? And why?" The man swallowed hard. "He's called Blackjack. He hunts them, sells their pelts, and worse, people say he's cursed or dangerous. I didn't want to be part of it. I was just following orders." Evelyn stepped forward, voice steady. "We can protect you, but you have to tell us everything you know. Every trap, every hideout, every plan. Do you understand?" The man nodded, fear etched in his features. I'll help. Just, please. He won't forgive betrayal." Sam exchanged a glance with Evelyn, and then turned his attention to the wolf, who growled softly, sensing the tension in the air. "Good," he said finally. "Then we move at first light. Blackjack won't wait, and neither can we." Night fell over the valley with a suffocating darkness broken only by the flicker of a small fire. Sam and Evelyn sat close, discussing plans in hushed tones while the wolf and cub rested at their feet. The danger pressing in from all sides made every heartbeat louder, every shadow a potential threat. Yet amid the fear, a quiet tenderness emerged. Sam found himself stealing glances at Evelyn, noting the determination in her eyes, the way her hair caught the firelight, the soft strength in her voice. He had spent years alone, hardened by loss and endless miles of prairie, but something in her presence softened that hardness. Evelyn caught his gaze and smiled faintly, a quiet, knowing look that made his chest tighten. "We're in this together," she said softly. "No matter what comes." The wolf growled low, as if in agreement, and Sam reached down to scratch behind her ears. The cub patted over, brushing against his leg. A strange peace settled in the firelight, a fragile bubble in a world where violence waited just beyond the trees. But the valley held more than shadows and whispers. The following morning they discovered the first trap, a deep pit hidden beneath brush, sharpened stakes at the bottom. Sam's stomach sank. Blackjack wasn't just cruel. He was meticulous, leaving snares to catch not only animals but anyone foolish enough to interfere. "He knew we were coming," Sam muttered, examining the trap. "He's been watching." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll turn it against him. We know his methods now. We can outsmart him." The wolf sniffed the ground near the pit, her instincts sharp and unerring. She backed away, ears flicking, warning them. The cub stayed close, but curiosity twitched in its small form. Sam realized that the animals were more than companions, they were partners in survival. The wolf's senses and courage complemented his and Evelyn's skills, a bond forged in danger and trust. As they moved deeper into the valley, the tension grew. Every rustle, every crack of twig made Sam's heart hammer. He thought of Blackjack, of the cruelty that had ensnared these animals and of the choices he would have to make to stop it. Revenge whispered in his mind, but so did justice, and he fought to remember which path he wanted to follow. The sun dipped behind the hills, casting long shadows across the prairie. Sam and Evelyn set up camp in a small hollow, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. The wolf curled at Sam's side. The cub snuggled against Evelyn's lap, and the fire flickered between them, warm and defiant. They shared little words, but the silence was filled with unspoken trust and growing affection. Suddenly the wolf stiffened, ears pricked, eyes fixed on the horizon. A figure emerged, moving through the fading light, tall, broad, and menacing. Blackjack had arrived, his presence filling the valley with an almost tangible darkness. His eyes locked on Sam, then Evelyn, then the wolf and cub, and a cruel smile twisted his face. "So," he said, voice smooth but deadly, "you've been meddling in my business, and you brought friends." Sam tightened his grip on his rifle, his jaw set. Evelyn drew a hidden knife, stepping close. The wolf growled, low and dangerous, and the cub barked, small but fearless. Sam realized with a cold certainty that this night would define them all. Survival, justice, and perhaps even love hung in the balance. The valley seemed to hold its breath as Blackjack advanced, the fading sunlight glinting off his knife. Sam stepped forward, rifle steady, while Evelyn moved to his side, the cub pressing against her legs and the wolf circling protectively around them. The air was thick with anticipation, every heartbeat a drum in the quiet. Blackjack's smile was cold, cruel, and deliberate. "You think you can take what's mine? Those wolves? That land?" He sneered. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." Sam's eyes narrowed. "They're not yours. And if you want a fight, you're going to get one." The wolf lunged suddenly, teeth bared, forcing Blackjack to step back. The cub barked, fearless, darting in front of Sam as if to shield him. The outlaw's eyes flicked from the animals to Sam and Evelyn, assessing, calculating. He had underestimated them before, but he was not a man to forgive mistakes. The first shot rang out. Sam's rifle cracked, the bullet singing through the twilight air. Blackjack ducked behind a boulder, snarling in frustration. Evelyn followed quickly, knife glinting as she moved with the precision and courage Sam had come to rely on. The wolf darted between the rocks, teeth flashing, moving with a grace that made Sam's chest tighten with awe and gratitude. The cub, small but fearless, squealed and leapt at the outlaw's legs, startling him. For several tense minutes, the valley became a battlefield of shadows, firelight, and courage. Sam and Evelyn coordinated silently, reading each other's movements, anticipating Blackjack's attacks. The wolf and cub acted as both shield and weapon, their instincts unmatched, their loyalty absolute. Finally, Sam saw his chance. Blackjack had overextended, stepping onto loose gravel near the edge of a small cliff. With careful aim, Sam fired, grazing the man's shoulder. Not enough to kill, but enough to unbalance him. Blackjack cursed, teetering, and Sam charged, tackling him to the ground. Evelyn joined, pressing the knife lightly against his throat. The wolf growled low, the cub barking insistently. Blackjack's sneer faltered. "You'll regret this," he spat. But there was no strength behind it. Sam held his gaze, unwavering. "We're not here for revenge. We're here for justice. And that starts with protecting what matters." Evelyn tightened her grip. "You'll answer for every trap, every chain, every cruelty. You'll answer to the prairie and to them." She gestured to the wolf and cub, whose eyes met Blackjack's with a fierce, unyielding intelligence. Defeated and trapped, Blackjack had no choice. Sam bound him with rope, his hands steady, his jaw set. The outlaw's threats faded into the wind, powerless against the bond between man, woman, and beast that had triumphed. As the adrenaline subsided, Sam and Evelyn tended to the wolf and cub, checking for injuries. The wolf nuzzled Sam's hand and the cub wriggled happily into Evelyn's arms. The bond between them had been forged in danger, trust, and courage, unbreakable now. Sitting by the fire that night, exhaustion heavy in their bones, Sam finally allowed himself a quiet moment of reflection. "We did it," he murmured, eyes on the animals. "They're safe. At least for now." Evelyn smiled, leaning close. "We did it together," she corrected softly, brushing a hand against his arm. There was a closeness, a warmth, a recognition of something deeper that had grown through shared danger. For the first time in years, Sam felt a sense of home. Not a place, but a presence. The night stretched on, peaceful at last. But the prairie had taught them that calm was fleeting. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, rebuilding trust, securing the valley, and ensuring Blackjack could never return. Yet for now there was triumph, companionship, and a strange, fragile hope. As they sat together, wolf and cub resting nearby, Sam realized something profound. In a world so often harsh and unforgiving, love, loyalty, and courage could still prevail. And in protecting these creatures, he had rediscovered a part of himself he thought lost forever. A heart capable of trust, of tenderness, and perhaps even of love. He looked at Evelyn, her face illuminated by the firelight, and knew that whatever the prairie threw at them next, they would face it side by side. The wolf growled softly. The cub yipped, and the wind whispered through the valley as if carrying a promise of the adventures still to come. The prairie awoke in a silver dawn, frost glinting on the grass like tiny stars. Sam rose first, brushing the sleep from his eyes, heart still racing from the night's confrontation. Blackjack was securely bound, tied to a sturdy tree with no chance of escape. But the weight of responsibility pressed on him still. The wolf and cub moved quietly around the camp, sensing the tension and reading Sam's every motion. Evelyn stirred beside him, her hand brushing his as she stretched, and for the first time since their journey began, he allowed himself to linger on her presence. "We need to decide what to do with him," she said softly, her eyes tracing the valley that stretched endlessly beyond them. "He can't be left free to hurt anyone else." Sam nodded, jaw tight. "He'll answer for his crimes. The law may be slow, but it'll come. For now, he's out of our way." He glanced at the wolf, who growled softly, a reminder that justice sometimes took many forms in this wild land. They packed camp carefully, moving through the valley with practiced caution. Sam's mind wandered to the months he had spent alone, the endless miles of prairie, the loneliness that had settled like dust on his heart. Yet now, with Evelyn at his side, with the wolf and cub following loyally, he felt a sense of purpose and connection he had long thought lost. As they rode toward the nearest town to deliver Blackjack to the sheriff, the conversation turned quiet, reflective. Evelyn spoke of dreams she had once abandoned, of a life beyond the prairie, a home filled with warmth, laughter, and family. Sam listened, drawn not only to her words, but to the gentle hope that lingered behind them. He realized that the prairie, harsh and unforgiving, had given him a second chance. "I never thought I'd see the day," he said slowly, "when I'd care this much for someone, or for anything." He paused, glancing at the wolf, then the cub, then back at her. "You've changed that. I don't want to lose it again." Evelyn smiled faintly, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Then don't. Stay. Build it with me. With them." She gestured to the wolf and cub, who had paused to watch them, ears perked and alert. "This place, these lives, they belong together." Sam's heart swelled. The loneliness of years fell away, replaced by a warmth he had not known he could feel again. He nodded, voice low but firm. "Then we'll make it right. Together." They reached the town of Silver Creek as the sun hovered low, painting the wooden buildings in warm gold. The sheriff accepted Blackjack without question, his eyes reflecting both relief and admiration at the bravery of the pair who had brought him in. The outlaw had no allies left, no power, no escape. Justice at last had been served. That evening, Sam and Evelyn returned to the valley, the wolf and cub bounding ahead, free and unafraid. Sam dismounted, brushing dust from Thunder's coat, and knelt beside the wolf. She nuzzled his hand, eyes intelligent, grateful, and protective. The cub yipped happily, rolling in the grass at Evelyn's feet. "They're ours now," Sam said softly, looking at Evelyn. "We protect them, and they protect us in return." Evelyn knelt beside him, brushing the cub's fur and laughing quietly at its antics. "And maybe," she said, glancing at him with a warmth that made his chest tighten, "we protect each other too." The wind whispered through the prairie, carrying the scent of pine, wildflowers, and new beginnings. The fire they lit that night crackled warmly, a beacon in the vast wilderness, and the wolf and cub rested close, shadows cast long and protective. Sam and Evelyn sat side by side, hands intertwined, hearts beating in quiet harmony with the rhythm of the land. In the weeks that followed, they repaired the valley, built a small homestead, and created a life where courage, love, and loyalty were the foundation. The wolf and cub thrived, their bond with Sam and Evelyn deepening with every passing day. The prairie, once a lonely and dangerous expanse, had become a home, a sanctuary forged through trials, trust, and unwavering courage. Sam often thought back to the first moment he had seen the chained wolf and cub, to the fear in their eyes and the chains that had bound them. He realized that saving them had saved more than just their lives. It had healed him, given him a sense of purpose, and led him to Evelyn, to love he had never dared to imagine, and to a family he would fiercely protect. And so, under the endless sky of the American West, amidst the wild beauty of the prairie, the cowboy, the woman, the wolf, and the cub faced each day together, free, unbroken, and bound by a loyalty that even the harshest lands could not sever.